Welcome to episode number 7 of Aussies taking over the NBA. We're going to have a wrap up of both the Houston and Jazz series, as well as the Boston and the Philly series. We lost 3 Aussies, Joe Ingles, Exum, and Ben Simmons, unfortunately, but Baynes moves on to the Eastern Conference Finals.
Ballerina Baynes.
Got Andy here with me. Say good day, Andy.
G'day.
What did you think of the Houston and Jazz series? Let's get right into it.
The stereotypical Houston, heat up, stay hot and win the game. But I mean, the Jazz without Ricky Rubio were pretty ill-disciplined, I would have to say. Mitchell running point, he's good, but he's not a point guard. And I think they really missed like the flawed general kind of mentality that Rubio has.
Yep.
I think Gobert was pretty crap the whole series.
Yeah,
he was pretty Capella just,
He ate him, and in big moments he ate him too. Like it wasn't, he couldn't get anything going at all, and even sort of away from the basket, he just couldn't get a thing going. And, one of their biggest sort of strategies is running pick and roll with Gobert, and he couldn't even get that going, and it was just, he looked tired, and even Ingles looked tired.
It was a long season, long series. I think that with they played well game 3. That game they won. Ingles and Exum won that game for them.
Yeah, game 2. Yeah, in Houston.
Game 2. That's right. Sorry, game 2.
That gave them such a boost. It gave me hope. I looked at that and went, wow, like they've won a game here. They're right in this, and they come to game 3 and just get punched in the mouth. And
they were down 50-20
I think they were down 30 at halftime.
Yeah, it was game over at halftime.
Yeah. And I was watching a few videos of the OKC series, and OKC seemed to just get wrapped up in the chippiness of that series and really lose their minds. And in that game 3, they came out Houston and just punched them in the mouth and just said, "Yeah, no, we're not having any of this. Good luck, Good luck coming back. If you're good enough to come back, then good luck to you."
And they weren't good enough. Not with Rubio out. I don't think. I mean, Crowder didn't get hot all series.
Nah.
O'Neal was pretty.
Well, he's a rookie as well.
Yeah, he's a rookie, but he's been good.
Yeah.
And Sullivan was good for first round in playoffs, but second round didn't do much for me. They didn't really have anyone off the bench. When Exum got injured in the third game,
game 4. And that was big too.
They were coming back from something. Game 4, Exum was bringing some good heat, and as soon as he was gone, that was it. Looked like they had no shape at the front. They didn't have a second ball handler, and I think it hurt them from that perspective. I think Harden and Chris Paul were too good. Chris Paul hit it up game 4 and 5. That's it.
Yeah, and it changed the way the entire series, sort of the way Jazz were guarding the Rockets was, Gobert being brought up into Chris Paul and Chris Paul being able to just cook him off the dribble and shoot from mid-range. I mean, he killed it in that game 5. He just destroyed them basically. And, having a player that's able to take that load off of Harden has just changed the way that Rockets team operates.
Yeah. And then you've got Eric Gordon coming off the bench that can shoot threes all day. So, I mean, look, boring series for my Ryan. Warriors. Rockets.
But I enjoyed watching it. Like, it was interesting the way the sort of back and forth of the entire series it went back and forth until game 3 when they got that punch in the mouth. But I felt the Jazz, if they had that extra player in Rubio, I mean, he's not someone that's going to decide a series and,
he'll win games. He'll win a game for you. I think he has a good performance. He'll win a game. It goes to 2-2. They get a bit of resilience. Exum doesn't get injured. There might be something there. But, I think game 5, really, there was no hope.
Yeah, and they were starting to look really tired. I mean, Gobert at home looked quite tired. Yeah. Even Ingles started to look real tired in that game 4.
The crowd was very, very silent.
Very. I hope you guys win this. We've been here before. Like, that was one of the things I was saying to you about that Boston crowd. They've been there for how many years? They know it doesn't matter. We'll just keep getting on our players and making sure we keep, pumping them up. They're not sitting there sort of feeling like, oh, the air's going to go out of the building if our team starts to go behind and really get behind in a game. So
yeah,
but I think we covered game 1 and game 2, didn't we?
No, we covered game 1, game 2,
3. I think we covered some of game 3 as well. But game 4, Ingles had 15 points on 6 of 13 shooting. They just closed him up. He got hot in that game 2 because they kept leaving him open, and then somebody read the scouting report and said, yeah, okay, let's not leave this guy open at all.
Yeah, shut him down quickly. I mean, he's a spot up shooter. He's not a catch and shoot guy.
Yeah, so
he's not quick off the dribble.
Yeah, he can't make his own shot off the dribble, and that was one of the biggest problems where Chris Paul and Harden can create a shot off the dribble, and then PJ Tucker off the bench and Eric Gordon can both create a shot off the dribble.
Yeah,
which you go down through that Jazz lineup, and without Rubio, it's really only Exum off the bench, and that's probably about it. Jerebko can shoot, catch and shoot, and that's pretty much about it.
Yeah, Alex Burks isn't too bad, but again, he didn't get the minutes.
Oh, he got the minutes, but
not game 4. I think as soon as Exum was out, he was in, but
he actually played quite well. Coming off the bench,
he plays well off the bench. Maybe next year a bigger role for him in more minutes, but I think that they were facing a very steep uphill battle. Yeah. Rockets are a good team. Let's not take it away from them. They're not an OKC. They're a Harden. They're not a Harden featuring 5 other players. Capella played well. Chris Paul played well. Eric Gordon played well.
Yeah, PJ Tucker came off the bench and played well.
They all played well. If it's not a team of individuals, it's a team. And they've played well all season, which is why they won.
Exum come off the bench. He had 9 points, 4 from 6 from the field.
He had 9 points in about 7 minutes, and then
he was doing so well fronting Harden and defending him 1-on-1.
He's a good defender. Look, I don't think it's done himself any disservice by the way he played that series. He's off contract.
Yeah, I think
he's a free agent. Well, he's not
restricted.
A free agent.
I think restricted free agent.
Restricted free agent. So I don't think they've exercised. Well, we won't know really until.
I think they're going to work it out in the off season.
Yeah, and I don't think he's done himself any disservice. It'd be. I think they may, add another year on.
Yeah,
but he's got to stay healthy for a year. If he doesn't stay healthy next season, he'll be a third choice point guard somewhere. So,
I think he's in his 4th year, but he's only 23.
Yeah,
you know what I mean.
He got picked. No college, no G League. He got picked off the back of the under 23s World Cup, where he was averaging 20-something points a game for Australia. And very, very unusual for them to be drafted at number 4.
5, I think it was.
5?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, but drafted at number 5 based on 4 games.
He's not injury prone either. I mean, he had that ACL. 5th pick. He had that ACL, which is obviously a big injury. I think that was 2 years ago, where he didn't play a game the entire season, and then he had a separated shoulder. So they're not. Niggly injuries who are going to, really derail a career. They're
not going to derail
big
a career,
injuries.
They're injuries that stop your game progressing.
Yeah.
With Simmons and Embiid, they had foot injuries, but they could still spot shoot all week, every week.
Yeah.
When you do your ACL, you can't move for 6 weeks. When you do your shoulder, you can't move. You can't shoot. So that part of your game suffers. Embiid was a shocking shot. When they picked him at first, he had no shot. But he had 2 seasons where all he could do was stand there and shoot. And that's why he's developed into a good player. Exum hadn't had that opportunity because of his shoulder, because of his knee. And so he really hasn't had a lot of quick game time. And he's not a traditional point guard in the sense he's not a pass-first point guard.
Yeah.
He's a shooter. He could probably play better as a shooting guard. He gets his defense better. He could become a good 2-way player and could run a good bench unit somewhere. Yeah. Just getting the right fit for him.
They've got a couple of good options there. I mean, if Rubio stays on, they've got Burks off the bench as well as Donovan Mitchell. I mean, he's been a revelation for them this season.
He'll continue, I think, to run that team and take them to the finals. I think at least the conference semifinals.
Yeah, I think if they're going to keep Exum, I think that kind of sort of falls into Exum's ability to play as shooting guard. Off ball. catch and slash as opposed to
and drive.
shoot.
He's a strong driver, really lanky.
Yeah.
He's got a wingspan for someone who's 6'6".
Yeah, he's a good finisher around the rim. So I think, that part of their rotation, I mean, to lose sort of a player that can defend Harden was a big sort of thing in the series. But they also lost that extra player who could catch at the perimeter and go at players, which the Ingles doesn't really bring that as a staple. I mean, if you're guarding Ingles, you want him to put the ball on the floor. You don't want to leave him open. So.
Of course. But, I mean, Ingles this season was kind of running the offense for a lot of the games, which he didn't really do, and it didn't work in the finals when he did do it.
Yeah.
I think it was Houston a too quick a team.
Yeah, too many switches.
Yeah, too many switches. They're too quick for him. He is slow-mo Joe. He's a great spot-up shooter, 44% regular season three-point shooter. But again, it's the postseason. You get worked out pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And, you're not playing against teams that are tanking, that are giving you the confidence to shoot well. You don't shoot well one game, it can go downhill very quickly. So I think he had an okay series from...
Yeah. That after that game too, I think that kind of breakout game where he, shot the lights out, really sort of got up in the grill of the Rockets a little bit, sort of shook them a little bit. I think it was good for them to come out and just totally punch the Jazz in the face in that first quarter to shut that down completely. And then obviously, they just started to guard Ingles at the perimeter and, not let sort of make him put it on the floor and not let him just spot up. He was walking into threes in that game too and hitting them. He had a heat check in the first quarter where he just shot straight over Harden. No respect type of stuff.
He's tall. He's got a high release point, which means he can shoot over most 6'3", 6'4" players. But they switched it up. They put a taller guard on him, and he had to put it on the floor. And a lot of the time he was driving to the rim pretty successfully. I think it was about 45, 50% from the field. But it's not going to win you games.
No.
And he's always going to offload to give it to someone else to shot. And when you back up, Crowder isn't shooting well. And Rubo's on the team.
Yeah, pretty poor in that. I think it was game 4. I think he had 1 of 11.
Yeah.
But as well, I think the Jazz, didn't have that experience of... And, Rubio translated into Donovan Mitchell. I mean, Mitchell's only a rookie.
Yeah.
And it looked like in some of those games sort of down the stretch that Mitchell was the scorer. I mean, they were going to Mitchell for offense.
Yes.
And you gotta look at him. He's only a rookie and, a lot of his scoring was drive from the perimeter in and finishing over people.
He was getting blocked a lot, and a lot of fouls weren't getting called. But again, every foul gets called for Harden. So he
shot a lot of free throws. I think he shot 43 free throws in that series.
That's a lot. That's a lot of points when games are tight.
Yeah. And
he's getting and ones. Like with that ball he shoved into Exum's face and it got called a blocking foul. That's the league for you. To be honest, in a couple of games, there's been some pretty poor reffing. Very biased towards one team. For both the Jazz Rocket series and the Boston Philly series.
Yeah.
As soon as Boston's at home, they get every call under the sun. I don't know why, but
I wonder. A lot of it's probably the game is starting to get a lot faster for the refs and a lot harder to call.
Yeah,
but I think the game is just faster. It's harder, and you've got the whistle in the split second. You've got to make a decision and make the call.
But you've got 3 refs, and it seems that neither is willing to overrule the other. They're just, okay, this is the most senior ref, he's made the call. And it's an American sport. And how many times do they go check the board for stupid niggly fouls to see if it's a flagrant or a technical, but they won't check when they're not sure potentially of in a game-changing situation. And for me, that's the big disappointment about that series. Not so much in terms of Harden. He's already going to get and ones from the field, quarters 1, 2, and 3. But he's had more free throws, I think, this season by a country mile than any other player.
I think it's over the last 6. I think he shot like 1,000 more free throws than Westbrook.
Yeah,
and it's it is what it is, man. Like you can't.
His step back shot is a travel as well.
Yeah, and that's dangerous. I mean, he's just so dangerous on the drive, and it's such a an energy demanding type of style of play. Like driving and scoring all the time takes all the energy out of you.
Yeah.
And if last year he kind of had that meltdown, and then this year, I mean, he's able to give the ball to Chris Paul and say, okay, you got to kind of make something happen. So in that game 5, Chris Paul had 41 points. I think he had 8 or 10 from 3. Like. Numbers that Harden would be putting up in the regular season, basically.
Yeah.
And I don't think Harden really played that well in the series. I mean,
he was guarded fairly well. I think it's hard. Harden's a good ball handler, but he's not a Chris Paul ball handler. And when you've got a Chris Paul in your team who...
He can run conventional pick and roll too. I mean, Harden's obviously, he's going to drive off the pick and score, or he's going to step back and score.
And shoot.
And with Capella's not going. They're not going to run any pick and pop with Capella. No. So it's mainly always, the roll guy rolls to the rim and they either dump off. I mean, that's a taxing type of play. Like it's a tough sort of thing to do all the time. And having Chris Paul, come off a pick and get to the foul line and take a mid-range jumper and hit him at a decent rate. It's kind of changed the way they play from last year and changed the workload that Harden has to sort of deal with. Because I don't think I don't think he played that well by his own standard.
It's a different team.
Yeah.
When Chris Paul's been out with injury, he's stepped up and he's scored 40, 50 points. But when he's not there, he very much looks as an offload opportunity or a second ball handler or a second scoring option. He's not relying on Eric Gordon or Clint Capella. They're kind of the and/ors.
Yep.
It's a two-man team, and that's what they're playing it as. But do they beat the Warriors?
That's a tough one. I was listening to a podcast where they were saying that pretty much anything bar a Rocket sweep was on the table, and I kind of agree with that. Like any result, like Warriors in 7, Rockets in 7, any result that wasn't a Rocket sweep, it could be Rockets in 5, it could be Warriors in 5. You just don't know. It's going to be such an interesting series.
It'll be an interesting series, but again for me, boring basketball because they're all spot up shooters. They're all spot up shooters. There's, the Boston Philly series was much more gritty. Bit of old school basketball entered
had a bit of everything
in game 4 when Philly got one back, and it was a really close series. Where for me the Jazz, once Rubio was out, they had a really strong game, and then that was it.
Yeah, they had that one game, and it felt like watching that there was a series of almosts in that they'd get the score close. In that game 4, they got within, I think. No, actually, it took the lead. They led by 5, and then the Rockets just ran over them.
Yeah.
And I didn't feel that Utah had that ability to just continually keep running over Houston. Like, you could tell once they'd worked out Ingles, it was, you're going to miss out on 10, 15 points and quickly, which just totally restricted the way the Jazz's offense was running. And then obviously Chris Paul took over because they were in with the shot. I think they led by 4. I think going into the last because Donovan Mitchell had 22 of his 24 in the third, and I think they led by 4 going into the fourth, and it was a bit of back and forth, back and forth, sort of scoring on each other until Chris Paul pretty much took over the game, and I think he had like 14 points straight pretty much, which took him away. So I think it'll be an interesting series, in my opinion, the Warriors and the Rockets. But I don't think you're going to get vintage sort of basketball. I think you're going to get how effective the Rockets pick and roll is against the Warriors, and how whoever's going to match up on Capella, that's going to be if you can kind of shut Capella down at the rim. Maybe you can kind of limit Harden and Paul a little bit, but there's obviously three aspects of the Rockets and then 4 aspects of the Warriors,
for me, it's whoever turns up and shoots the best from the night and whoever gets their most offensive boards. I think
you look at the Warriors and they don't really have a traditional center that plays like Capella.
No.
I mean, or maybe at the level, they've got JaVale McGee, but at the level of Capella,
Not at his level, but you never know. He could have a good series. But again, if a Clay, Durant, if Steph Curry's on point, it's
going to be tough.
Who's hot. It's going to be a tough series. I don't think there'll be many close games. I think it'll be a blowout either way.
Yeah, it'll be who gets that 10-15 run and then runs out and makes sure the other team is pretty much stomped down on the canvas type of thing.
I think there's going to be a lot of third quarter bench minutes coming into the late fourth. A lot of junk minutes. And yeah, that's why I'm saying it's not going to be like a nail-biting series. By end of third quarter, we know who's going to win every game. It's just, again, who's going to run with it and who's going to run away with it early on or later in the time. So, all right, let's go on to the Boston-Philly series.
Yeah. Well, what do you think about that? It was 4-1 to the Celtics. There were a couple of really close games in that series.
It could have easily been 4-1 the other way.
Yeah.
But it wasn't. And for me, the Celtics deserved that series. They played extremely well. Philly made horrible mistakes in crucial moments. Again, that's just their youth. Inexperience, not doing the right thing. Boston are a hardened team. They've been there before. Al Horford, for me, is man of the series.
Yeah, he was fantastic. Absolutely fantastic.
Every game in the right moments, came up with good plays. Didn't need to score a lot. He was there steadying the ship. Terry Rozier had one game where he just went off like a frog in a sack.
Yeah.
Hit 8 from 10, I think, from beyond that. And it was just shooting over everybody.
That was game one, yeah.
Game one, yeah. Boston were a team that were always going to be impossible to beat at home. Matched up to Philly very well. I think game 3, the overtime loss with some silly mistakes hurt Philly.
Yeah.
It goes to game 7 for my mind if they win that, but they didn't.
Yeah.
Game 5. Game 4. Game 4. They pulled one back. They pulled it back pretty convincingly as well. Boston didn't have much towards the end of it, but game 5 for me, disappointing. Bad call on Embiid at the end.
Yeah.
That would have squared things up. Couple of really they didn't post up enough to Embiid. I think that whole series. I think when they did, they tore Boston apart.
Yeah.
Horford and Baynes just got called. I think Baynes probably had the best series of his life.
Yeah.
He played ecstatically well on Embiid. Was able to shut him down, was able to guard him effectively, use his size and his weight, and then discovered in his whole career, he was 4 from 29 beyond the arc.
Yeah, Baynes.
And he was 8 from 16 that series. Whole career.
And big shots too. I mean,
just out of nowhere.
I think that was the allure. I mean, that was what they were using so effectively is, running their regular action, moving the ball around, posting up Horford or Rozier and Tatum cutting, Jaylen Brown, coming off a curl, and then somebody would leave Baynes in the corner and he'd hit a 3 and you'd go, yeah, Baynes in the corner, of course. And they were using that so well in the fact that it obviously wasn't just, on the chalkboard play where everyone's got to look out for Baynes in the corner. Make sure no matter what, you don't leave him in the corner.
You'd let him, for 4 for 29 in his career, he's been in the NBA 6 years. You'd let him take that shot every day of the week.
Yeah.
Every single day of the week, you'd quite happily have him over in the corner for 3. But he hits 50% for the series.
Yeah,
that's not, in crucial moments, it probably won them game 2, for my mind. And with defending Embiid quite well and nullifying that in game 2. But again, Embiid
Embiid had some massive dunks on him though.
Oh yeah, but I mean that's
Baynes.
Big ones. Embiid's 7'2", Baynes is 6'10". He's got weight, but he hasn't got the height or the reach of Embiid. And Embiid is one of the best centers in the league. He's an all-star center up there with Al Horford and a traditional center in that regards. For me, the most interesting game was game 4 because it took me back. Philly, I think, shot 11 from beyond the arc that whole game. They played post up. Saric played extremely well. He played like an old school power forward. Just posted up the whole time. Got shots in. Drew the fouls. That for me was a tick of genius with Brett Brown. I don't think Boston knew what to do. And I think in game 4 they didn't know what to do. But they got a couple of lucky game 5. They got a couple of lucky calls game 5. It could have gone either way. Game 3, Simmons probably had the worst game of his career.
Yeah.
He was
it was a game
20.
2, I think.
No, game 3 was at home.
Game 3, oh yeah.
It was 1 point. from the game, which wasn't for me. Doesn't really matter because he's a pass first point guard, but he was minus 25 on the field. For me, that was bad coaching. Brett Brown, he brought Simmons back into the game with 7 minutes left, even though TJ was kind of steadying the ship and really hitting.
Oh, yeah, that was the one where they had that inbounds play and Redick inbounded it, and essentially Simmons was trying to run off a screen and it basically hit him in the back.
Yep.
Because he wasn't looking, and then they went down the other end and scored.
Yep.
Yeah.
That
on that type of issue, I think.
I mean, that's just inexperience.
That felt like.
But again, that's the coaching. I think Game 3, Brett Brown lost that game. I think Simmons was having a bad night. Okay, everyone has bad nights. You got a few more. You're not there to teach Simmons how to play basketball in the playoffs.
Yeah.
You're there to win games. He comes back, and he comes back stronger Game 4. Yes, he did. He played well. Even Game 5, he played well. TJ McConnell was bringing us back into that game in Game 3, and that's the game we needed to win. Boston were always going to be, nearly unstoppable at home, and TJ was plus 16 on the field, and he was taken out 8 minutes to go.
Yeah.
Wrong decision from my mind. Let TJ or bring Ben Simmons in as a second ball handler and having TJ on the point. That gives him more confidence to potentially drive to the rim or open up and not have to worry about, because they didn't respect his shot all series. So he struggled to get to the rim because they're guarding everyone else so tightly and giving him so much space to do nothing. Yeah. He's not going to shoot, that. So standing under the rim when he's got the ball, he's not going to drive in over the top of you. And he did a few times, and it very, very low degree of success. That, for my mind, turned the series. Game 4, they played really well. Game 5, bad calls. They could have won Game 2 as well.
Yeah,
but they didn't.
I think they were very close in all of the games. That series had that real back and forth sort of old school feel to it.
You're on the edge of your seat every game. You didn't know who was going to win. Come 2 minutes left in the quarter, anyone could have taken that game, any game, except Game 1. I think Rozier played, out of his socks Game 1.
Yeah,
but the rest, it could have gone either way. Again, it builds on Philly for next year. Simmons had, a positive series. From my mind, TJ McConnell is man of that series. He came into every game and changed it.
Yeah.
Embiid didn't do that. Sarge didn't do that. Simmons didn't do that. TJ did.
One of the other things was just how poor Covington was. And Bellinelli didn't really have that much of an impact or the same sort of impact he had on that Miami series.
Offensively, Covington was very poor. Defensively, I thought he was okay.
Yeah.
He's a good defender. He's one of the best defenders in the league. But again, offensively, he was none for 11 game 2 or Game 3.
Yeah.
Just horrible, horrible performance. And again, that's why they started TJ Game 4, and it worked. And they started TJ Game 5, and it worked. So, from my mind, that was the right call, and that almost got them back in the series. But that turning point for me was 7 minutes to go, Game 3, where he brought Simmons back in, and Simmons wasn't having a night at all.
Yeah,
and he should have just sat him down or brought him as a second ball handler and had TJ running the point. Silly mistakes towards the end.
Yeah, I think that's probably their first year in the playoffs. I mean, Embiid wasn't 100% fit. He had that fracture, playing in a mask, struggling probably for fitness and a bit of conditioning. If they maybe had another sort of center with a similar game as Embiid to sort of rotate him a little bit more.
Yeah, Amir Johnson has a good defense game, but he has no offense. For my mind, and again, their third center is Rashawn Holmes, all offense, no defense.
Yeah.
Embiid's a good two-way player.
Yeah. So they were always trying to get as much out of Embiid as possible with his conditioning and obviously with the mask and all of that sort of stuff.
You've got a 6'10" point guard who guys struggle to post up against.
Yeah.
Simmons is not a bad defender. He's probably not the greatest defender, but he's a kind of mid NBA defender. You switch Embiid off him. You've got enough ball handlers in the team in Fultz.
I mean, I don't think he played a single minute.
He didn't play a single minute that series. But McConnell was quite content running the point. I think that they just shut JJ Redick down extremely well. Marcus Morris was fantastic.
Yeah, I think the impact that Morris and Tatum and even Brown playing on that injured hamstring, I mean, the weapons that those three had on offense really changed the way Philly had to defend. I mean, every time down the floor, Tatum would always, they'd run a rotation, they'd run an action, and Tatum, no matter where he was, could, pump fake and then drive and maybe get something, or at least...
Tatum, from my mind, is one of the best scorers in the NBA. He gets the rim so well. He's a good spot-up shooter. He's good from beyond the arc. Defense is somewhat lacking. I think that defensively he needs to get better, but he will. He's a rookie. And he's a rookie primed on offense as well.
The other part about that is they had someone in Redick to kind of hide him on, which was important.
Yeah, Redick is very, very poor defensively.
Well, they were able to hide Tatum on Redick because of his size. And I mean, Redick's, only going to run on the perimeter and, he's not going to create shots and drive with the ability that Tatum or Brown have to drive and score. So, I mean, being able to defend outside is different to, having to defend teams that always, every single player is going to put the ball on the floor if they run off the perimeter.
Yeah.
If they run off the perimeter, you'd see Tatum and Brown putting the ball on the floor and getting to the rim. And I'm just not really, Redick can do it. You can definitely do it.
His ball handling isn't the greatest. But again, he's not known for that. He's a catch and shoot player. That's what he's brought into the team from. He was effective all season. Career best season for him. Played very well against Miami.
Yeah.
Even though he was defended extremely well against Miami. He had a lot of open shots game 5, and he missed. He had a really good shot towards the end, but I think the game was over at that point anyway.
Yeah.
But there was a few shots 5-6 minutes to go where he was open and he didn't hit it.
He hit that. He had that huge shot, that long range one to kind of bring it to within. Yeah.
With 2 seconds left, it was hope in where there was no hope.
Yeah.
Essentially, but I mean. 3 or 4 minutes before that, he had 2 open shots where he didn't drain.
Yeah.
And that was very unlike Redick. Usually he would drain those shots quite easily, and he had no defenders on him.
Yeah.
It was a good pick and roll. Embiid was screening well, and he didn't have defenders. He didn't hit it. For my mind, Rozier was trying to pinch Embiid's pocket the whole time. That left TJ. TJ's a good shooter. They should have kicked it back out to TJ. And that's my one fault of Embiid. He is still a very two-dimensional player.
Yeah. He doesn't like to kick out of the post. He wants to score, which is, that's fine in itself.
That's his. But again, in those situations, that's a coaching decision to make. Look for the open option. Look for TJ. If Rozier's coming to pick your pocket, throw it to TJ and hit the 3. But again, young team, all young.
Yeah.
There's one guy there that's been there, in the playoffs before. In Redick. So very, very good experience for them. Boston played extremely well. I don't think they're going to beat LeBron. I don't.
Oh, it'll be an interesting series. I
think it'll be an interesting series, but there's not one individual who, for my mind, can guard LeBron with athleticism.
Yeah.
That's.
But then I guess Brad Stevens is a pretty good coach, and I mean you'd be looking at different ways to defend LeBron. Kyrie obviously knows how LeBron plays. I guess he'll be digging deep into the bag trying to find something.
He will. But just the way LeBron's been playing.
Yeah, he's been fantastic. So, but it'll be interesting because one of the big things about Boston and the way they played in that series was the way that, they shut down the outside, like Covington. They completely shut him down. Like, obviously, Redick's the guy you look at who's going to come off a curl and take a shot. Covington, though, he's just struggled. Yeah, he really struggled. And I mean, that's obviously when you're going into a series against the Cavs, you're looking at them as though LeBron plus shooters around LeBron. So obviously that's a part where maybe, Boston have found something, but I think maybe the inexperience and the type of shooters that Philly had were a little bit different in terms of, LeBron and his shooters who have all been there. I mean, you got Korver.
I think LeBron posts up a lot more. I think they look at that game where Philly beat Boston and even game 5 and they play a traditional smackdown paint game.
Yeah.
I don't think Boston plays well against that. I think they're the number 1 team that guards the perimeter. I think you'd play a traditional size game. And Cleveland is a bigger team. They're not a faster team, they're a bigger team.
Yep.
And I think they play a traditional paint game. Try and defend the perimeter against Boston, and I think they take the series quite comfortably.
So you think for Philly to return to the playoffs again next year, what do you think they need to add?
Look, I think that with their roster stays the same, they make the playoffs again next year.
Yeah.
I think so. Unless something happens the East is just not that strong. Unless Blake Griffin returns to some sort of kingdom and Detroit gets up there. Charlotte, for my mind, has a good team as well, but they're not quite at that level.
Yeah.
And young and enthusiastic. Look, trade rumors around Covington, Fultz for Leonard, Kawhi.
Oh, yeah.
Potential. I think Philly's going to add someone big to their roster next year. They've got so much cap space.
Yeah, they need someone big, someone with experience.
JJ Redick will take a hit, slight hit. They'll get rid of Johnson.
Boogie Cousins?
No, I don't. No, God, no.
But
they take either they get a shooter or a second ball handler.
Yeah.
That's
someone
that's
to sort of maybe take the load off Simmons just a little bit. I mean,
well, you get a ball handler that can shoot and is a two-way player like Kawhi Leonard. It fits very, very nicely into Simmons' game.
Yeah.
You got a good bench rotation in TJ who can run bench minutes effectively all season and turn up when he needs to. I think he stays with Philly next year. He gets pinched somewhere the year after.
Yep.
I think he'll be running his own unit in a tanking team somewhere and be on decent dollars doing that. I think if they pick up LeBron, and they are going for LeBron, it takes away from Simmons too much.
Yeah, I think
it doesn't fit for my liking.
Yeah, for how like the distance they travelled in these playoffs this season, I don't think they'd be looking at this Boston series and thinking they don't have enough to win. I'd be looking at that.
They have enough to win the East. Do they have enough to win overall?
I'd be looking at it and saying, look, just some dumb plays down the stretch of a couple of these games lost us a series. I mean, you wouldn't be looking at that series and just thinking, wow, like we're not even close to being where we came to this season.
And for my mind, they beat Cleveland. I think they've got for size comparison, they beat Cleveland.
I think if they get rid of the inexperience, I mean that series really showed you that they weren't ready. They kind of ran real fast into a brick wall of you're not ready yet.
Of course.
And it couldn't have been sort of more vivid that happened. So that's a good thing and it's a bad thing. Obviously, nobody wants to go out of a series early or ever. But at the same time, instead of sort of looking at their team and going, right, we didn't really deserve to be here. We got beaten handily. We need to look at the things we need to change this team to make it better.
No.
You'd kind of take this as all right, use this experience that we've just had, some silly plays. We went out in a silly sort of fashion, use that this season to prove, to take the next step.
Oh, completely. I think that they don't change their roster. They're in the playoffs next season.
Yeah.
And they're probably in the semifinals of the conference. I would like to see a backup center, a semi-decent backup two-way center.
Yep.
I don't think
someone with experience.
I don't think Amir Johnson will be in there next year. Jared Bayless is still on the payroll. He's got one more season. That's a waste of money. He was on the bench. I thought that he would have just been given his marching orders and say, go shoot out the back. But he'll probably get some minutes next year.
You got to look at Markel Fultz too. I mean,
I
what
think
they're going to do with him.
With the series in the year TJ's had, do you really need a third primary ball handler?
Well, if TJ maybe is going to leave at the end of next year, I mean, you can keep Fultz. He's still on his rookie deal.
Yeah. I think they use him as a bargaining chip to get a player on contract. For me, it's Kawhi.
Yeah, maybe that's someone really big. I mean, you're not going to waste that sort of chip.
No, you're gonna pinch someone very, very big.
Him and Simmons, obviously, if they're going to stay on, obviously Fultz is going to stay on next year. Obviously, Simmons is going to stay on next year.
Yeah, they're building the team around Simmons. That is very clear.
They both need to go somewhere and develop a shot. Like, not necessarily just for their own individual game, but within the system of Philly, I mean, take their system and try to devise areas where they could manage their shot. Even if, Simmons goes and develops a shot, he's got to look for that shot. I think one of his biggest problems in that series is he was not necessarily passive, but not just looking to put up a shot, because I'm not a great shooter and it might not go in. I mean, you need someone who's just, I don't really care. I'm going to just put it up.
This is where Westbrook mentality, I'm just going to hoik shots up there until something drops. And there was many times, especially in that series against Boston, because everyone else was being guarded so well that the likelihood of a slow play up the field and him not putting up a shot is going to end in nothing anyway was pretty high. Well, so if he's putting up a shot and hitting 40%, it's still the same as what if he was passing off to anyone else and hoiking a shot in.
Well, it's all about getting a good shot. And it looks like for Simmons, there is no good shot for him. It's just, he gets all the way by, blows by someone completely and gets to the rim, or he gets, within maybe 3 or 4 feet to put up a floater. And if I was sort of coaching him at the start of next season, I'd be looking to get him just at least one shot where
I would be looking for a perimeter shot, because at least
or mid-range, something on the wing, something.
I don't even think mid-range. I think perimeter shooting for him gives that respect to drive that player out, and he's big enough and strong enough to blow past them. So all he needs to do is develop that game, and for teams to respect that game enough to take the man to the perimeter so he can blow past them and get the dunking ones.
Yeah.
That's for me. He develops a mid-range shot. I think they'll still sit off him a bit.
Yeah.
And if you look statistically, a mid-range shot is a lower percentage than a three-pointer.
Yeah.
So to develop that three and bring them all the way out to the arc allows him to drive and get the ball where he wants anyway. I think that's another 5 to 10 points a game for him if he can develop that.
Yeah.
And that brings his game to the next level.
It sort of changes the way their offense works as well. I mean, you can't always rely on him blowing by somebody and dunking, and even that in itself, if he was doing that, maybe, if all of his points were just coming off blow-bys and dunks, I mean, that's a taxing sort of way to play. You can't just continually go to the hole all the time. You're going to wear yourself out.
Yeah.
And it changes so much to just be able to come off a pick with Embiid and have the threat of a shot. I mean, anytime they sort of had a little bit of success in Game 4 running pick and roll with Embiid, but they don't need to respect Ben Simmons at all.
No.
That extra guy doesn't need to really hedge off of Simmons, because they know he's not going to take a shot, and they know if he's already beat them off the step, he's going to get to the rim anyway, and a rotation's going to come and contest for them. So I'd be looking for some sort of maybe pick and roll, like a shot off a pick and roll that he can just ease into, try and at least get that up to change people's mentality of defending him on the perimeter, because, it really showed in that series that once that aspect was removed from his game, then, Boston had pretty much just a downhill. It was like, well, we don't even need to guard him at all. And I mean,
and they weren't.
In a playoff series, that's a tough, that's a really tough hurdle to overcome for a team, is, one of our guys isn't even being guarded because he's not, he's not capable of scoring. And that's a big sort of coaching hurdle to get over.
It allows plays to two-man Embiid. It allows plays to switch off Simmons and two-man Embiid.
Yeah. And that's what Rozier was sort of doing down the stretch of a lot of those games.
Yeah.
I mean,
and
that
with
even...
Embiid's, single sight basket and not being able to kick out to an arc shooter.
Yeah.
It's a point of the game that during the season you won't get teams defending you that hard. You might get a Rockets or someone, who are going for the title, the conference title, but most teams are not going to defend Simmons like they do in the finals. It's too taxing. It's too risk prone. He'll blow by them most series. But again, once you get to the playoffs, it's all to get to the playoffs. Any smart coach will do exactly the same thing as what Boston's done, and they'll get away with it every game. So again, got to develop something. He'll work on that. First season, from my mind, he's rookie of the year. There's no other point guard or there's no other player that took that team from nothing to something. Last year they had Embiid. They weren't winning. They weren't a 630 team with Embiid. They were a 400 team with Embiid.
Yeah.
They've gone from 400 to 630 with Simmons and JJ Redick from my mind.
Yeah. I think we'll go over that. We're going to do a Ben Simmons sort of wrap up as well, so we'll go over that a little bit more.
The whole series. But
do you want to have a chat about Baynes against the Cavs?
I think
Get some
they
predictions.
put Baynes on LeBron. That, for my mind, his size, how he guarded Embiid is exactly what he needs to do against LeBron.
Yep.
LeBron's smart though, so you have to measure that he will foul trouble pretty early each game. And he will take a few points off LeBron. Again, I think the Raptors did such a disservice to that conference by letting not just LeBron, but everyone else in that team get hot.
Yeah.
Like Love, Korver, J.R. Smith. Like they were doing nothing against the Pacers. None of them.
Yeah, really, really. It was strangely poor against the Pacers, and I've even gone back to try and watch that series and work out what was happening, and I have no idea.
They were just woeful. LeBron single-handedly won that series.
Yeah,
that was a single-handed series in the series against the Raptors. He just kind of did what he wanted, and
yeah, it was playing at 30%, just waltzing up like it was a pickup game, and toying with the Raptors almost.
And it's given him time off. It's given him rest.
Yeah,
in a tough schedule, and he'll come back stronger. And I think I think they'll go past the Celtics 4-1.
Yeah, you reckon in 5?
Yeah,
Cavs in 5.
Cavs in 5.
I'll definitely write that on the board. I had Cavs in 6. I kind of want Boston to win because of how far they've come with Stevens and this, depleted unit. Just like what they've done in this finals really is pretty amazing.
They deserve to win every series they've played in. They deserve to beat Philly, from my mind. They were the better team, and they were the more hungry team.
Yeah,
definitely down the straight. They were scrappier towards the end of games and getting what they needed to out of them. So they come out. I think if Scary Terry has a good series, they get closer, potentially more games their way. But he's typically not good away from home. His shooting percentage at Boston is above 50, and away from home it's under 30.
Yeah.
So it's
I'm not sure. Whether George Hill, who has the sort of advantage. I think George Hill has kind of some size on Rozier.
He does, but I think Rozier showed that he can play around size.
Yeah.
I think that even with guarding, they just switch on to the right players. But again, a 5-man team that shoots is going to be a bit different than a 4-man team with Simmons.
Yeah, I think that's going to be a big difference, is having that guard who, or having the guy who you can leave open and basically play 5-on-4.
Because you look at when McConnell came on in that series, they're all positive minutes. They're all up. And that just shows you that when when Boston went to a 5-man guarding against Philly, they struggled.
Yep.
They struggled a bit more than when they were playing Simmons. Simmons wasn't right for that series in my mind. And then again, that's a coaching thing.
Yeah, that's just how it is.
That's
first team in the league, first sort of year in the playoffs. I mean, you've got to take that as it comes. You've got to take each game as it comes and try and manage through. That's why it was such an unusual series, because all of those games could have gone either way, really. When you look at them, except the first game where they went on that huge run at the end to basically blow it out.
Yeah.
The rest of those games were such an arm wrestle that you just, a more sort of switched on team with the experience doesn't throw away that game 3, and then doesn't sort of, tightens it up in game 5. I think they led by 5 in game 5.
Yeah, tightens up, doesn't make silly mistakes game 5, and maybe closes that one out, and then it's 3-2 Philly.
And that just comes with patience and experience. And I mean, that Boston team, I think they've got a few more weapons to sort of throw at LeBron. I think Horford and Baynes as a sort of tandem. I don't know if they'll have much success away from the basket against LeBron.
No.
Because he's shooting so much better this season. His shot has been fantastic. And that's another aspect that you really have to, you've got to try and force him to just drive endlessly. And then usually sort of not disrespect his shot, but try and make him sort of take contested shots where, he's fading, he spent 3 or 4 seconds posting up or something like that. But eventually, I don't think Boston have enough sort of, like they have Marcus Morris, but Marcus Morris, I wouldn't say he was a lockdown defender or someone who really has the tools to take on LeBron. But Horford and Baynes, as well as Marcus Morris. And then, Marcus Smart played all right in that series. I mean, with a sore thumb, he played all right in that Philly series. He was a pest. Maybe he can have an impact. But Tatum and Brown, I think, being inexperienced, they're going to get taken advantage of.
They will, defensively. I think Greg Monroe comes into this series with a bit of size against Kevin Love, potentially neutralizing Kevin Love. In 3 or 4 minute runs towards the end of each quarter. But I think the ball handling from Boston, it depends. If Shane Larkin gets...
I think he's still injured. I think he's going to miss most of this series.
Okay, well that's always tough because they use Marcus Morris as a second handler, and I don't think he really cut it.
Marcus Smart,
sorry. Really cut it against Philly. So, look, interesting series. I still think the Cavs in 5. And I suppose we'll be back here mid playoff series, mid final series, to wrap up the first 3 or 4 games.
Yeah, and we're gonna work on a Dante Exum and Joe Ingles season review, and work on a Ben Simmons season review. So we'll try and have those out maybe next weekend.
Yep, definitely.
All right, mate.
Cool.
All right, take it easy, everyone.
Bye-bye.